Okay, today we're talking with Derek Fuller. Of course, Derek, you're the guitar player from Van Halen tribute band Van Halen. Now, you guys are based out of the Los Angeles area, correct?
Exactly right. I'm actually in Orange County, and the other parts of the band are kind of spread out in the valley and kind of all over the place.
And Orange County has kind of a unique little music scene that's been growing the last couple of years. Would you agree with that?
Are you referring to just tributes or just music in general?
Well, just I know especially the tribute scene, but I've seen a lot of a music scene growing in general.
Yeah, there's a great band out of Huntington Beach, that's where I live, called Avenged Sevenfold, who I've supported since pretty early on. Actually went out and just saw them just last week.
Okay, and of course, a lot of people might be surprised to learn, how much money there's to be made doing the tribute thing if you do it right, kind of like what you guys have been doing. So my first question is, why get into a tribute band rather than form your own original project?
Sure. So for me, it's easy. I'm in my 40s, and I did have an original band back in the day when I was in my 20s, early 20s, and tried to, become rich and famous and live the rock and roll dream. But that didn't materialize, so I went to school, had children, got my MBA, got a career going, and all that good stuff. And then I kind of got back into playing guitar through a friend who I grew up playing with, and that's what kind of led me into it. And Van Halen for me was a natural, path because Eddie had been my idol ever since I started playing. So. And
before we talk about your current project, Van Halen, could you talk a little bit about the original project you had? I mean, did you guys play on the Hollywood, Sunset Strip at all? Or?
Absolutely, we did the whole cliche. We played at Gazzari's, we played at the Troubadour, we played at the Whiskey, we did all those things. And, you basically pay to play back then, where you would have to buy tickets and then sell them to your friends or walk the Sunset Strip and try to sell them that way. So I did all that for sure. And, we didn't get that lucky break that some bands did. And this was, early 80s, mid 80s. So this is when the height of that was going on. And for whatever reason, our band didn't catch on. So that was it. We all kind of went our separate ways.
And then, you said you went on to business school and that and got your degree. Do you think that helped you at all with what you're, doing now, as far as your band now, because I understand
a lot. Yeah, I mean, as you know, music is a business, even though some may not completely understand that, but definitely this is a business. And the idea being, your band has to not only perform and do well, but it also has to bring in people who, a buying audience who likes to drink, because that's part of the equation. So you have to understand that. You have to understand it has to be a win-win for the venue and the band. So there is definitely a business aspect behind all this, and you have to have a pretty good business mind to make this all kind of work. You can't just show up and expect, put the onus on the venue to have, bring the people and do all the marketing and push these shows. So.
And you're talking a little bit about pay to play, which I know they still have at a lot of Hollywood clubs, which is kind of like what you're saying. You got to guarantee that you can get the people in there. Do you guys do that much with Van Halen, or have you just at the point where you built a reputation that you are able to get the crowd there?
Yeah, so absolutely, we've built up a fan base, and we draw very well, so we don't have to do that, and clubs see that. There are clubs who want to soften their exposure and the risk. So what we do, and a lot of bands will do, is you'll get a guarantee and then plus some back end, meaning if you hit certain numbers, then you get the extra percentage points and all that kind of stuff. And that's part of business.
Yeah, and let me ask you, Derek, talk a little bit about your love for Van Halen. How old were you when you first got into Van Halen? Do you remember what album that first attracted you to the band, or what was the song?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember it quite vividly. I was a huge Ted Nugent fan, a Kiss fan, Cheap Trick fan, and I started playing guitar. And I guess Ted Nugent was my first, guy I kind of looked to and looked up to as that as the kind of guitar player I want to be. And then I have an older brother. He's about 5 years older than I, one. And to us, we're like, what is this? This doesn't sound good. And then I think we hit the 8-track player and it skipped, go to the next track. And I think we heard Ice Cream Man, and we're like, we just weren't into it at all. And then we heard, obviously we heard Running with the Devil and then Eruption, and it was like, we were pretty much floored. We were like trying to, we're scratching our heads, like, what is this? How is this guy doing this? Well, just like everybody else, all the, millions of guitar players out there, I'm sure had the same or very similar, response. And that was it. So, and we had the guy that we looked up to, our local guy. Everybody has a guy that you look up to in the neighborhood. We had a guy who was playing the Sunset Strip, and he was really talented, and he was heavily influenced with Van Halen. So that obviously influenced us, because he would learn the Van Halen stuff and then teach it to us, and that was it.
And so let me ask you, how old were you when you started playing the guitar?
I was actually kind of old. I was 15.
Okay.
A lot of kids, like, I have a son who started at 6, so I was a late bloomer.
And you said you had somebody teach you, but would you say you were you took a lot of lessons, or you were kind of self-taught as well?
Yeah, mainly self-taught. I had access to guitar players. My brother played drums. My older brother was, like I said, was 5 years older. He played drums in a band, so I had access to guitar players. So that was very helpful. As you can imagine, I'd have guitar players coming to our house, because that's where my brother's band rehearsed, and I would, grab them and say, hey, come in here, teach me something. So I had that going for me. And then I also took, lessons here and there, learned some theory and the scales and so forth back very early on. And then, from there it was mainly self-taught, and got into bands and just started writing and doing all that kind of stuff. And then, as I said earlier, I just kind of gave it up for quite a few years so I could raise my family and do what I was supposed to do.
Of course. And so, let me ask you, like the Van Halens, I was curious if you ever played in bands with your brother.
Yeah, I sure have.
And do you guys get along pretty well, or do you feel, being brothers, like you have a special connection? I've read interviews with Eddie and Alex where they said because they're brothers and they've been playing all their life.
No, that's exactly right. And Pantera, obviously, another band like that. But I get along with him great. I mean, him and I are very much alike, and even our music influences and everything else is very much alike. So we did. It just he had different things going on, and I had different things going on. So we never really did anything too serious. We did covers together and goofed off a lot together, but for the most part, we never really got serious and said, "Hey, let's form a band." Because I think by the time I was ready to get serious, he had been through it already. Like I said, he was 5 years older.
Okay.
So he was ready to move on, and then when I came on the other side of after beginning to get out of business school, we did some jamming, but nothing too serious.
And so, what year was it when you formed Van Halen?
It was 2003. This is our 10-year anniversary.
Wow. And you guys are one of the current Van Halen tributes that really stand out. Probably the most obvious other one would be the Atomic Punks. They've been probably one of the premier tribute bands. When you put your band together, is that kind of one of the bands you looked at, as far as what type of thing you were going to put together?
Sure. So the Atomic Punks, where they started 19 years ago. So you could imagine that's 9 years before I even started. And I would see, that a Van Halen tribute band was performing, and they would be playing out in the valley, and it was just too far for me to go. I didn't want to drive all that way or whatever. But it was interesting, right? Because there wasn't too many rock tribute bands at the time. You had the Doors had one, Wild Child, and you had the Beatles, and very few rock tribute bands existed. So it was a whole new phenomenon. So I went to go see the Atomic Punks, and the singer, who was Ralph Fiennes, who now is in Steel Panther. I mean, the guy was great. The guy was just, he was David Lee Roth, persona, and had the vocal, had the look, had the moves. I go, wow, this guy's really good. And at the time, they had Bart Walsh playing guitar, and he was great, and he was nailing this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is pretty darn awesome. So that definitely, obviously, played a part. Just like bands that come see us now, and all of a sudden they'll pop up a new Van Halen band. But certainly, that was a part of it.
And and the reason I decided I want to interview guys like you that play in tribute bands is because there's this big misconception among a lot of people that guys that play at tributes are like failed musicians or guys that couldn't make it doing their own original thing, which I've found out is obviously not the case, because I mean, you just brought up Ralph Senez, and interestingly enough, he's made more money doing the tribute thing, starting with Atomic Punks, and he was briefly for a minute in LA Guns, but he's made more money doing this tribute scene than when he was in LA Guns. And if you'd stop and think about that for a minute, that's kind of amazing thing to think about.
No, it absolutely is. And what other people don't really understand is that in a tribute band, you're kind of a weekend warrior. There's not a lot of guys out there that are full-time musicians, although there are. But a lot of us are weekend warriors where we have day jobs or careers, have families, and a tribute band allows us to go out, play a great venue, make some money, get treated really well, and just have a great hobby that you actually make a little money and then have a good time, meet great people. And we've traveled the world with tribute band. We played in Japan, we played in South America, we played in Central America, we played in Canada.
Wow.
So we played all over the place, and obviously you have people coming to our shows who are like-minded and love Van Halen, so we have a lot in common with these people, and it ends up being just a great experience for everybody. And
where's been your favorite place so far to play, as far as those places that you played outside of the U.S.?
It's all like I said. Everybody goes. People who show up to our shows want to see Van Halen.
Yeah.
So it's very, everywhere you go. It's very enthusiastic. People are into it and have a great time. So I can't put my finger on one like, hey, this was a great place compared to this place. Because all of them are of course different. Experiences are different, but they're all just great experiences. We played recently, like this last year, we played in Costa Rica.
Wow.
And that was fun just because the things that we got to do outside of performing. We got to experience, Costa Rica, and got to do zip lining, and got to go to some private beaches, and got to do all that great stuff. And then we played Japan. We played for the U.S. troops for their July 4th party, and that was totally cool. And they were so appreciative that we were there. So each one's a little different experience, but they're all great.
And I imagine when you guys are touring outside the country, that must be exciting too, because you get to travel and go away from your ordinary home base, and must be neat feeling being on a plane as opposed to in a little tiny van playing the local club down the street.
Yeah, I mean there's some great clubs down the street, I have to admit, but no, it is fun, and a lot of times we'll be pinching ourselves on the plane ride home saying, did we just do that? Did we just get to experience that? I mean, people pay big money to go to rock and roll fantasy camp and get to live out their rock and roll dream, and we do it almost every weekend. So it's a great hobby.
And so being in a tribute band like you are, Derek, I've interviewed a couple other people, and they they're not even at this level. They're like I said, they've been doing it a couple of years, and they're just kind of pretty much playing the Southern California area. And I understand like it's a big thing. A lot of Vegas is becoming a big place where a lot of these bands are getting residencies and stuff. And so a band such as Van Halen, what do you think is allowed to get you to that point where you're getting offers to play in other countries and stuff?
Well, the whole tribute scene in itself has really taken off. And so when I started 10 years ago, it was I had no expectations. I had no idea where it would take us or what would happen. I thought it would be kind of a short-lived thing, to be honest. But it continues to grow. The band, obviously a lot of people are jumping in and seeing that the tribute bands are getting great shows and getting paid well and getting great audiences and so forth. So there's a lot of them, as you can imagine, and they're at different varying degrees. It takes time, right? So when you start out, I posted a picture of us because this is our 10-year anniversary. I posted a picture of us from 2003 playing at the Hard Rock Cafe in La Jolla, and you look at our outfits and you look at our wigs and you look at the equipment and you go, hey, you see, that's what happens when you first start out. It takes time to be able to really hone this thing, and it just takes a lot of effort and to build it, and it's a lot of work.
And do you think a lot of it has to do with the internet? I mean, people just going on your site and checking you out, or a lot of it has to do with that and the word of mouth?
No, I think the internet certainly plays a role. I mean, Facebook and of course MySpace originally had a lot to do with it. It was a great vehicle to be able to get the word out about your band, to share videos, to share pictures, and it's a push instead of a pull, right? So if you have a website, which we do, of course, vanhalen.net or vanhalen.com,
And let me ask you, because one thing I've noticed about you guys that I think helps you guys be so successful is you're really into looking the part. I mean, your singer, he looks dead on like you'd swear he was David Lee Roth. You look, I'd swear you were Eddie Van Halen. How important is that to you guys to really look the part?
I've always, people ask that, and I've always said kind of a canned answer, but if you go see an Elvis impersonator and you have a certain expectation, you expect this black pompadour, you expect these big sideburns, right? These lamb chop sideburns, or whatever you call them, and the white jumpsuit with the eagle on the back, the rhinestone. I mean, you want all that stuff. You want those scars. So, in the same regard, I would expect to see that if I'm going to go see a band, because in Van Halen's a little bit different than some bands. Yeah. Each of those members had a personality, and you knew them. Yeah. Some bands you don't, right? The bass player, I don't even know what he looked like or what his name was in some bands. Yeah. But Van Halen, they had 4 characters, and everybody knows who they are and what they did and how they acted. So it's really important to bring that. So what we always say is if you squint your eyes and you squint your ears, you really believe you're at a Van Halen concert.
I mean, I've been to some of these tribute shows, and I can tell you, bands like you, where you guys really dress the part and stuff, I mean, you can give people a magical experience in the sense of, for example, I went to see this couple of Guns N' Roses tribute. One was Hollywood Rose. The guy looks the part. I mean, he looks like Axl Rose from 1987. They do the whole Appetite for Destruction thing. The other guys in the band look the part. And the singer Colby Vale, he used to sing in Steven Adler's band, and so
I know Colby, and he's a real good guy. Yeah, he does a great job, no doubt about it.
Yeah, he's
been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, he's a real cool guy, and the interesting thing about him is, again, doing the tribute scene has allowed him to not only be a successful musician, but it's allowed him to do his own original thing, on the side, and he's had opportunities, like I said, such as to playing with Steven Adler, but getting back to his band, Hollywood Rose, I've seen them a number of times, and like I said, that's probably the closest I'm ever going to get to see a real Guns N' Roses concert, you know what I mean, of original band.
And unfortunately, you're probably right. I wish they would get their act together and do it, because I think the whole country wants to hear him, the whole world wants to hear him do that. I mean, Van Halen finally did it, sort of. Of course, they didn't have Michael Anthony, which we're still waiting, and it could happen. But I think at some point, I never got to see Guns N' Roses back in the day, and I've seen a lot of bands, so I never got to see that one.
And at the same time, I mean, Axl Rose has got his version of Guns N' Roses, but there's also people that maybe can't afford a $200 ticket, but yet they go see a Guns N' Roses tribute. It's maybe the next best thing, and if the band puts on a great enough show, you give the audience something to remember.
Right.
And so let me talk to you about so you guys do the original Van Halen. So do you play anything off of the latest album, A Different Kind of Truth?
Yeah, we learned one song in its entirety, and then we kind of teased when the album first came out, Tattoo, and it hadn't gone over all that well, to be honest. Mm-hmm. When we played either one, what's the Out of Space is the song that we learned, which is called Let's Get Rockin' originally as a demo. And we played it, and just kind of, one or two people knew what it was. The majority of the audience had no idea. So we haven't played that since.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. The last album they did was a bunch of, rather than writing new songs, they went in and re-recorded a bunch of old demos. As a fan, what did you think about that?
Yeah, so I guess half of them were that way, right?
Yeah.
And the other half, there are some, half of them are originals, or ones they had recently written. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was great. Yeah. I thought it was the exact right thing to do. And I couldn't have asked for a better scenario for myself. I mean, I'm obviously familiar with those songs because they've been out for a long time and I've heard them all. Uh-huh. And those songs were written when Van Halen was hungry, when they were coming up, and when they were writing some of their best material, hands down. So for them to go back to that made perfect sense to me. And those songs obviously are Van Halen through and through. So I don't think the audience was discounted or gypped in any way.
Yeah.
I think it was awesome, and I was very happy. I hope they do do it again. I know they have several other songs that they haven't released. I hope they do it again.
And what do you think about Wolfgang? As a bass player, I mean, when you consider the fact that when he first joined the band, I think he was like only 16 years old, and he's playing up there on stage with guys that are a lot more seasoned.
Sure.
Playing, they're a lot older. I mean, that's got to be for a guy that young to getting started in Van Halen. That's got to be pretty amazing.
Absolutely. But in life, that's pretty much what happens, right? It's all about who you know, and why did this guy get the job over that guy? Well, he happened to know that guy, or that guy was his uncle, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff happens all the time in our everyday lives. So it doesn't, surprise me whatsoever. It makes sense. I understand why Van Halen did that. I think would I'd rather had Michael Anthony as a fan, of course.
Yeah.
Michael Anthony's a great component of Van Halen, and he adds a lot. His bass playing is fantastic. His vocals are fantastic, and he seems like I've met him a couple of times, and he seems like a genuine great guy. So would have loved to have had him in the band, of course. But do I understand why they chose not to go with him? Yeah, I understand it. What I've been told, and I don't know how much truth there is to it, is that it was Wolfgang who kind of made the thing happen. So if Wolfgang hadn't made it happen, then we may have never seen David Lee Roth back with Van Halen. So if you're given that scenario, then it's perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, glad.
I'd rather have Michael, but I get it, and I'm content with it. But I'm not giving up hope that I'll see him with Michael at some point.
Yeah, it is what it is. Now, I was curious if you've ever met any of the Van Halen guys.
Yeah, like I said, I've met Michael a couple of times.
Okay.
He lives down here in Orange County. I've met Eddie in only group settings. I've never met him one-on-one. And I've never met Alex, nor have I met Dave. Okay.
And so let me ask you about Van Halen. What's the hardest thing about putting on a show you guys put on, or is there something that's really difficult, or even what do you enjoy the most about it?
Okay, so the most difficult thing that we do would be I think when you go, let's say we just played at a casino last night, or Sunday night we played in Tucson, and you have a casino where you have an audience that were paid to come see a Van Halen tribute band, and then you had an audience, part of the audience, that it was comped to see a Van Halen show, or to see a show, period.
Yeah.
They're not sure what it is. They got comp tickets because they were playing at a table or whatever. So you have to entertain these people, right? So, and they may not be completely Van Halen fans. So you kind of got to win them over, and that's kind of our approach, that we know that that audience is not 100% even know a lot of Van Halen material. So we will play, our set list will accommodate them, so we'll play some of the cover stuff that they would do, so that they're familiar with the music, and it's our job to get them into the show and enjoying the show and up and dancing and moving around. So I guess that's a difficult chore sometimes, but it's a task that we're always up for and enjoy doing, winning over the audience. And then there's always those easy audiences, right? They're just totally into it, and they're, the fever, and they're into it from the first note to the last. But there are those shows where you have to win them over.
And as far as the set list, I was curious, how do you guys come up with the set list? Do you have like a set of songs that you guys pretty much do, or you play like all the radio hits pretty much, or does everybody get together and kind of say, I want to do this song, and you kind of all vote on it?
Yeah, so it's definitely open for discussion. We all kind of chime in and do what, we want to do. And there's always these songs you have to play, and we play every single show. So you got Jumps, and your Hot for Teachers, your Panamas, and Talking About Love, those types of songs. And then there's always want to throw in at least a few deep cuts for the diehard Van Halen fan, the guy that shows up in the old 1981, Van Halen jersey.
Yeah.
So, you dig deep and say, okay, what do we do? Let's do Hear About It Later, or let's do, DOA, or something that's deeper that, somebody, the average fan may not know. And then, sometimes we'll throw in a David Lee Roth solo song, or, just try to, we mix it up pretty good. And
so, like you're saying, being in Van Halen, you're kind of a weekend warrior, and that's kind of what you guys do on the weekend. I understand a lot of the guys in tribute bands, they have more than one tribute that they take part in. Are you and any of your bandmates in any other bands, or is this your?
Yeah. So our whole band except the drum. Well, except the bass player does Motley Crue. So we do Motley Crue with a D.
Okay, wow. And I haven't heard too much about that band, Motley Crue. Are you guys fairly new, or you've been doing it for a while?
No, I've been doing Motley Crue for about 8 years, and we formed a kind of a new version of it, and we haven't been playing a great shows because Van Halen's been playing so much. So we'll do some double bills. We did a show at the Grove of Anaheim together, and we've done some shows in Hollywood, and we did some shows in Arizona. So we're kind of gearing back up to go out and hit it hard. The summer months are tough because Van Halen is so booked and so busy. It's hard to squeeze in a Motley Crue show. But we're definitely going to get this train back rolling.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about the fact that you guys are a tribute band. There's there aren't any royalty checks coming in. So is the bulk of your income primarily just from ticket sales, or people come to the show, or do you have any merchandise in that you sell?
Yeah, we sell merch at shows. We were on a compilation disc, a Van Halen compilation disc that had guys from Rad or the guys from Dio and the guys from Aerosmith played on, and they all contribute Van Halen songs. So we did that. So we sell that at a show, and we'll sell inflatable, striped up guitars for the kids, that kind of stuff. It depends on the venue. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we're traveling, we don't bring that stuff with because that's just more stuff to put on a plane that we don't want to do. And
so, playing the role of Eddie Van Halen, I was curious, do you do a guitar solo or anything during the show?
Every show. Okay. Just as Van Halen did, right? So we try to bring that whole show that Van Halen did, we bring it to our stage, right? So Van Halen used to play I'm So Glad in the middle of Somebody Give You a Doctor. That's what we're going to do. They had a drum solo in the second song during Hot for Teacher. That's what we're going to do. So we do whatever they did is what we do.
And so,
Eddie played a solo every show, so of course I play a solo every show.
So I was curious, also on songs such as Jump, do you play the keyboard parts on that as well, or do you just stick strictly to the guitar?
Strictly to the guitar.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll have guest keyboard players come in and do it. Otherwise, we'll use a track.
Okay, and I was curious, putting on a tribute show such as you do, Derek. What's the most expensive part about putting the show together? Is it a matter of getting the stage clothing, or your outfits, or what?
No, I would say definitely the most expensive part is the music equipment, right?
Okay.
I don't play. Some of these other tribute bands will. I try to get the most authentic gear that I can. So my '59 Plexi Super Lead, modded, the Jose Arredondo. I don't know if you're familiar with that person, but that's who did Eddie's head.
Okay.
And the cabinet that he used and how he configured it is what I used. The pedals that he used is what I used. I actually have a lot of Eddie's cabinets that he used back in '81, and I used those. So I'm really going for a very authentic tone, and that costs money. And the drummer, goes out and gets the Simmons drums just as Alex had, or the bass player has the Jack Daniels bass made, so that the idea is we want to be as authentic as possible. That's what differentiates Van Halen from all the others. Yeah,
and I was curious in regards to gear too. Have you bought any of Eddie's? He's got his personal 5150 guitars and amps. Have you ever had the experience of playing any of those? Or
sure, no, I have them. I just don't play them.
Okay, and like I said, when looking at the pictures on your website, you really look a lot like Eddie Van Halen. I guess you're in costume, so to speak. But have you ever been mistaken for him, or people think you're him actually?
No, I get mistaken, believe it or not, a lot more for being Satchel in Steel Panther. I mean, I get that almost every show.
Wow.
Anybody who knows Steel Panther, they always come up to me and ask me, "Are you the guy? You're the guy, right?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." But no, I don't look like Eddie. My face does not look like Edward's face. I'm much taller than Edward.
Yeah.
So I just do the best that I can to
look the
give
part. Yeah.
that look. So the way I'll do my hair, which is a challenge in of itself. Forget about playing the guitar like Eddie. Try to get my hair like Eddie is the challenge. I had perfect rock star hair. Yeah. And and obviously the clothes and the mannerisms and the jumps and the twists and all that kind of stuff. It is, I do all that to try to at least emulate Eddie as much as humanly possible.
And it's obviously, like a Kiss tribute where you have to put makeup on, but does it take you guys long to get suited up and, ready for a show before you hit the stage? Or you?
No, we kind of got it down to a science. I mean, we've been doing it for so long, right? So it doesn't take too long.
Okay, and so like when you first started doing this, I was curious. I mean, obviously you're a Van Halen fan, but did you actually go and like look at different music videos or even live performance clips of the actual Van Halen? Like you're saying, you kind of get into the choreography and all that.
Absolutely, it's a prerequisite.
Okay.
I mean, I still do it, and I still pick up things that I hadn't seen originally. I mean, I'll listen to the music. Believe me, my family is so sick of Van Halen and listening and hearing Van Halen that every time it comes on, they immediately change it. But I don't, I like it, of course, still, but I do listen to it to I continually study and continually hone. I'll hear a note that Eddie played in the song and go, oh my God, I've never heard that. That's I mean, so I'm always a student trying to better my performance.
And obviously you guys cover the classic original Van Halen era, but I was curious, were you at all a fan of the stuff they did with Sammy Hagar?
Ultimately, yes. Originally, no. So when that happened, when the split happened, I went to see David Lee Roth, the Eat 'Em and Smile tour. I bought the Eat 'Em and Smile record, cassette, whatever it was at the time.
Yeah.
And I went to the tour. I saw 2 nights at the Forum. I didn't go to 5150. I didn't buy the record. I didn't go to OU812. I didn't buy the record. I did buy Skyscraper. So I kind of followed Dave, and because Steve Vai was a big part of that too, of course. Steve Vai was a big influence and somebody I really admired a lot. So, so I didn't. And, obviously I've always been an Eddie fan. I still, even then I was just, for whatever reason, followed Dave. And then ultimately I kind of fell back into it, and I went to the From Lawful Carnal Knowledge tour, and I went to the Live Right Here Right Now tour, and the Balance tour. So, and of course the Van Halen 3, I went to that tour. So I did kind of come back into it, but originally I just was kind of following Dave and his thing.
And I was curious to know.
He's more Van Halen to me than Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, I was curious. What did you think about the Van Halen 3 era? I mean, it was just one album, but did you like any of the stuff that was on that album?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly like what Eddie was doing on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, me as a fan, I just think didn't get a fair shake. I think they were trying to do something a little different. Like I really liked the single Without You. I think they would have done more stuff like that. Maybe it would have been a little bigger. It made a little
Yeah, Year to the Day is really a song that stands out for me that I really like.
Yeah, and so I think it's a shame that Gary Sharon didn't get a chance to do any more with them, but that one album. But then now we have Dave back, which is I think a great thing. And so even though Van Halen's still together, I was curious. They don't like they're not currently on tour, and they might not be touring for a while. So that's got to mean good business for you guys. I mean.
Yeah, it's there's two sides to that, and sometimes you'll have, when Van Halen is touring, Van Halen is top of mind, so people begin to book Van Halen because of that, or want to see a Van Halen band because of that. And then, of course, if they're not around, people all of a sudden want to see Van Halen. So it could be both ways. It really doesn't seem to impact much. I mean, if I look at all the tour dates that we've had and compare it to how when Van Halen was touring and when they weren't touring, there's not a lot of difference. Okay,
yeah, I was going to ask you about that because when I was talking to you earlier this morning, and and we're getting this interview set up for this afternoon, you're telling me you guys have had a lot of shows lately. Is that pretty common for you guys, or is it just this is a busy time of year, or you guys pretty much booked all year round?
No, it's all year round for sure. We play almost every weekend.
Wow.
It's now a rarity that we have a weekend off.
And so let me ask you, Derek, do you manage a band? I mean, do you pretty much book all the shows, or do you have somebody that does that for you?
Yeah, we have management that does all that.
And I understand, even being a tribute band for you guys to be at the point where you have a manager, that's usually a sign that you're in a pretty good place, because a lot of the bands I've talked to are right now at the point where they're just doing it all themselves.
Yes, I've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah. And so, what, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us about this Van Halen experience?
No, I mean, if you like Van Halen, I think you're going to like the show a lot. I think that we are truly a very authentic tribute. And have you seen the band?
Well, like I said, I haven't had the pleasure of seeing you guys yet. I'd like to, but what I've seen, as far as in the photos on your webpage, I've just been, wow, like I said.
You got to come see the band live. I mean, that's what it all boils down to. That's where, that's really the fun. That's where the fun's at. Seeing a live performance and getting caught up in it. And the best compliment we can ever get is when someone comes up and says, "Man, you brought me back when I saw Van Halen back in 1979. It was the Forum was just an amazing time for me, as with my girlfriend, whatever. And you guys just brought me back." I mean, that's the best compliment we can get, and that's what we strive for every time.
And do you see a lot of it? It's talking about your fan base. Do you see a lot of the same faces at local shows and stuff? People that always come out and see you.
Absolutely. You see those fanatics that love Van Halen are there, and you see the guys who love Eddie Van Halen watching every lick that I'm saying, they doing that one? Yeah, you see those guys, and you see the girls that love David Lee and dancing up front. So yeah, you see them. They're there, and that's you couldn't ask for more.
And I imagine being a tribute act too helps, at least as a musician, helps you to keep your chops up, because you're out there, playing regularly, and even though I was curious playing the Van Halen tunes, like you said, you're always learning new ways of doing stuff. But do you have to keep up with the practicing, or are you at a point where you pretty much know how to play these songs note for note?
I practice just to keep my hands, the hand strength. Right, because what Eddie does is it takes a lot of hand strength. So I practice just to keep that up, so that when I go out and perform it, it's fairly easy to do. Otherwise, if you don't, you let that go, then it's hard. You do some pretty serious stretches and like some crazy acrobatic stuff. So I definitely always have a guitar in my hand almost every day, and I just to keep myself limber and strong.
And I was curious, probably not at a Van Halen show, but just as a guitar player, I was curious if you've ever, played with the drill bit like Eddie did on Pound Cake.
I've never tried that.
Yeah.
I've never tried it. Now, he kind of just uses the motor of the drill to get that sound, compared to someone like Paul Gilbert, who actually put picks on the end of the drill.
Oh, okay.
Plays it that way.
Yeah. Okay, and so do you guys have any shows coming up in the next couple weeks?
Well, yes, we do. So we're playing quite a bit here. We're playing a birthday party. It's interesting. When we first started, we'd always play 40-year-old birthday parties.
Wow.
Now we're playing 50-year-old birthday parties. But that's okay. That's great. And then we're playing in Riverside at Romano's next weekend. And next week we're playing at everyone's favorite rock and roll swap meet, the Santa Fe Springs swap meet, on the 21st.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then we're playing, I don't know if you're familiar with a band called Lit. They own a bar called the Slide Bar on the 28th. That's a matinee show at 2 o'clock, and that's a free show.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So do you guys primarily play with other tribute acts, or are you able to play with original bands as well?
It's been all different. I prefer to play with other tribute bands if there's going to be another band performing, just because it kind of helps with the whole, people know what to expect. You got people coming in to see an original band, also a tribute band. They may, what I mean. So when we play with, let's say, a Bon Jovi band or a Led Zeppelin band or an AC/DC band or whatever, it makes it for a pretty fun event and fun evening for people. And
do you ever go and check out any of the other tribute bands, or even just Van Halen tributes?
I'm a huge fan. There's some great ones out there. I enjoy them. I mean, absolutely.
Okay, and well, Derek, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm glad we finally
So thanks once again, and I'll be in touch with you. And just to let you know where I am with this project, I probably got a month more or so of interviews to do, and then I'll be putting the seats and put the CDs together and everything, and I'll be sure you get a copy of this. And
That'd be great.
thanks again, my friend. I'll be in touch.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye bye.